There you go. Okay, we're official. As we look at what we're doing this morning, this comes full circle, I've used that term already, to something that's scriptural in my mind. Often we talk about the fact that we're a Christ-centered institution and we desire to have him at the center of all we do. And back when Gillian and I started this research in 22-23, our thought was the fact that Matthew 7:12 gives the words of Jesus when he said, in everything you do to others, do what you would have them do to you. And as we thought about our adjuncts, we thought, if we were in an institution where we're not there all the time or we don't know everything that's going on, it really would be very helpful and very scriptural to treat our adjuncts as we would like to be treated. And as such, that's when we began our research of what are your needs, what are you satisfied with, and then what do we need to do to meet those needs. So this is our ethical principle that we're building upon right now. We want to meet your needs, and you will be receiving this afternoon after this session an email asking for your input. We want to continue to perpetuate meeting your needs, finding out what you need, what you don't need, because we certainly don't want to beat you over the head with something that just fills up extra time that you don't have much of. So golden rule is what we're basing this entire premise upon. I know other schools could do it, but that's where we're coming from. We want to move forward with meeting your needs. We are going to go through several presentations today. Let me give you a quick preview. I sent you an agenda, but we're going to start with Dawn with the eLearn site. I'm going to talk about the eLearn landing page and show it to you. Lynette Petit-Young, our Vice President of Academic Affairs, will talk about J1, which is our new, what's a good word? Learning, I don't call it a management system, but it's our new program to track our students, to work with grades. Talk about My Judson for just a minute and end up with ChatGPT, thanks to Elaine Roberts, who is our guru right now. So the first person who's going to be up is Dawn Karlofsky. Dawn is probably in your upper left corner. You'll see her in a moment as she speaks. She's a technical professor in the professional studies, which is our adult program, and she's the director of learning and technology. Basically, my description of Dawn is she knows everything you need to know about eLearn. And if you run into trouble and your chair can't help you, she's the woman. Go to her. She'll take care of you. So Dawn, please share with them whatever it is you think we could use.
Okay, great. Thanks, BBH. Everyone, my name is Dawn Karlofsky, like BBH said, and I know I've emailed probably with every one of you, so it's kind of fun to see your faces or see your names on here because it's always just kind of an email exchange between me and you, and so sometimes it comes across as me just answering your question, and so I can't be as personal as I can be on this type of presentation, but I didn't know how many people would show up today, so I do have a presentation, but I did want to say, with the number we have right now, I'd be okay if you interrupt me, stop me, if you have a specific question. Like BBH said, I want to make sure I answer your questions and your needs. I don't know that unless you say it. So I have a agenda I'm going to go over, but feel free at any time to stop me and say, oh, wait, I had a question about this, or I'm not sure about that. I'm going to toggle between a PowerPoint and the eLearn. So you can see both, but I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see all of you. I just want to say next month is my 20 year that I started as an adjunct 20 years ago. February will be so I know exactly where you are, where you have lots of other responsibilities, but you're still trying to teach a course here and there. And and a lot of times in emails when I get from all of you, I hear, oh, well, I only teach one a semester, so I kind of forgot what I did last semester. I totally understand that. Never feel bad about emailing me the same question at the beginning of every semester. I'm used to it. I understand it. I know you're not in it all the time. So I completely understand that. So I wanted to put that out there. So I'm gonna be reviewing some eLearn stuff. And like I said, feel free to just ask questions. I'm gonna share my screen now. I'm probably gonna turn my camera off because you don't really need to see me. You need to see the screen. I don't want to take up your any part of your screen with my face. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay. There we go. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see that PowerPoint, right? Everyone good? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you. The things I'm going to go over today are, I'm not going to touch a lot on J1 or My Judson because I know that's in the agenda, but I'm just going to say how it connects with eLearn, how they connect with eLearn, and my kind of interpretation of what they involve. The other thing I'm going to go over obviously is using eLearn. I have, like I said, I have a set number of things to go over with you, but with this number we have here, feel free to interrupt and ask a question at any time that might apply directly to your course. By popular demand, I'm going to talk a little bit about Turnitin, which is our plagiarism checker, and now also our AI checker. And so I'm going to go over the features of that and what that involves in case that applies to your curriculum. And some, I just put in some crazy not facts to remember, because there's a lot of facts that, about passwords and all this kind of stuff. So that's how I kind of put that slide in. Then who do you contact for what? Because like I said, I know as an adjunct, you're busy, you have other responsibilities, and you need to know who you need to contact for what and get the answers right away. And then just introduce you to the eLearn support team. So that's kind of my agenda that I'm going to go over in the next 20 minutes. And like I said, feel free to stop me at any point. So this slide looks complicated. I tried to simplify it for everybody. So I'm sorry if I made it look more complicated than it is. But I just wanted to give an overall of how the systems interact with eLearn so that everybody is on the same page with that and knows how that works. So in my opinion, I look at the My Judson website as a hub. So to me, that's just a link to a bunch of resources, employee resources, documents for faculty and staff. So to me, that's a hub. J1, which they call J1 Web sometimes, is all the registration data for your courses. So your student roster, your official student roster is in J1. Your instructor schedule on what you're teaching, where you put your official grades go into J1. So that being said, that's all like kind of the data area, right? That gets fed into eLearn. Okay, the data gets fed into eLearn. So if you're not in J1 as the official instructor on record, you will not have access to your site in eLearn. So that has to be done first. That data has to be in there. Same thing with a student that comes up to you and says, oh, I'm registered for your class, or I should be in your class. If they're not in J1, they're not getting access to the eLearn course site. So that's kind of your first step when you email me and say, oh, I don't have access to the site. It's you probably want to check J1 first, because you have to be an instructor of record on there first. It just connects all the data through. So in eLearn is kind of like your course management, your documents, your grade book, like your working grade book, where you can add content, quizzes, assignments, links, and documents. And I did put the URL on each one of these above it. You can kind of see, and I'll post this in the eLearn resource site, and I can give the copy to BBH as well to post where she wants to put it. But I would always say, my always recommendation is to bookmark those links. Like bookmark all three of them, in your browser, in your web browser. Because one interesting fact, and that's kind of why I have the dotted line between the two items, the My Judson and the J1 and the eLearn, is because eLearn's on a separate server, a totally separate different location. So when if Judson, email website goes down, eLearn is still accessible. It's still up. It's not connected. So but you have to have the URL, right? You can't go to judsonu.edu, go into My Judson and click on the eLearn link. If that's down, that's not going to work. So you have to go ahead and, bookmark the eLearn link. Okay, so hopefully that kind of gives you an overview. I know someone's going to go into on the agenda My Judson and J1 a little bit more later, but I just wanted to show you all of you how it connected to eLearn.
I'm getting a little feedback. I don't know if it's just me.
I am too. If everybody would mute their computers so that we don't have that. Okay, Dawn, you're back up. Go.
Okay, let me know if there's an issue and I can.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the very first thing is eLearn password resets. And this is applicable not only to you, but to students. If you happen to forget your eLearn password, you don't need to contact me. You don't need to call Judson IT. They can't help with eLearn anyways. But what you do is there's a lost password link right on the front page under your username and password, where you put it in under, it says login in the blue box. There's lost password. What that's going to do, you're going to fill that out. It's going to send it to your Judson email. So you have to have access to your Judson email. And that's why I tell students too. But it will send and reset your password automatically that way. So that's, if you forget your password, I know it happens once again. I know adjuncts sometimes have a big time frame between when they taught one course to the next one. And so you haven't been in there. But if you forgot your password, it's right in login page. You hit lost password and follow those steps. And like I said, that's the same thing with students. If students come up to you and say, oh, I don't remember my password, I can't get into the classroom, you can direct them right to the front page on the lost password. Okay, so once, right, you're in J1, you have access to your eLearn course, you have your username and password. Well, now you're in the class. So let me go between, here's a website, and I just go straight to the dashboard. So this is like my dashboard. And you say, well, you have one class. Yeah, well, I have, so this is what I want to point out about the dashboard. There's a drop down right here. And I get this question very frequently when I say, oh, I can't see all my courses or my past ones, or if you just click all of your courses will show up, past, present, future, and all those show up. But at the same point, like if you just want to see your future ones, because it hasn't started yet, you go to future and you can see I'm teaching this one it's in February. So it hasn't started yet, but I have access to it right here. So as long as that course is set up in J1, you will have access to future courses if you're designated as the instructor. When I do the drop down, I can also do in progress. So those are courses that didn't have an end date or didn't end yet. And these are a lot of ones that I've done in the past that just don't have an end date on them. Then if you click past, you're going to see all your past courses. So if you have to go back to a course to look at something, you can go back in there. Now, the biggest issue with this drop down is that if I log out of eLearn and come back in, it's still at past. So then if you forgot you filtered that down, then you're like, oh, where's my current class? Where's, my future class? And you forget. So you might want to always put it back to all, or just keep it on whichever one that is, you can remember is most convenient. The one I like the most actually is the starred. Okay, so what you can do is on any of your courses, the little 3 dots on the right, you can click that and do star this course. So if I did that to a bunch of courses and I went into my starred area, those are the 3 courses I have starred. So they're kind of my favorites, right? That's kind of like when you're bookmarking or, making a favorite URL in your browser. This is your favorite courses you want to have in the starred area. You can always unstar them and take them off, or, unstar this course and it won't be there, but that's kind of your own private filter. You can also search for courses by name here. You can also sort by last access or sort by course name, however you want your dashboard to show up. You can also, I have the card view where you can kind of see the boxes, but you can do a list of your courses where it's like that if you don't like scrolling as much, and it'll show the image on the left and then the information. Or you can do summary, what will give you the description, whatever descriptors in your course information will show up as well. So these are, just the different kind of views you can look at. And like I said, if I log in, log back out, it'll be at this exact view. So you just got to remember what view you're on and how to change that. So that's basically your dashboard. So I know some of you might say, well, I don't have an image for my course. So if you're in the card view like this, it'll just be a blank color. You can actually add that in your edit settings of your course. So in your main course, just the edit settings, you can drag and drop any image in there, and it will put an image on this card for you and students to see when they're looking at their dashboard. So that's something you might want to consider doing when you're setting up your course. And I don't think I've said it already, but you want to be using the Chrome browser when you're using eLearn. And I say that because that's what our eLearn system is based on, a Moodle-based system, and the developers test everything on a Chrome browser. So if you're on a different browser and something's not working in there, it might be because you're not in the Chrome browser. So I also, always tell faculty and students to make sure you're using the Chrome browser when you're using eLearn. Okay, the other important thing in eLearn initially, before you set anything up, is your profile. So on the top right-hand side, let me go back to, I'll be going back and forth, but on the top right-hand side, when you're in eLearn, there's a drop-down by your picture, and there's a profile, and there's a bunch of other different options. So you always want to, I always like having a picture in there. It's up to you if you want a picture or not, but it's kind of nice and more welcoming for students if you put your picture in there. The other options, and I'm not going to go over all of them because they're not all going to apply to things you're going to do, but the important ones are you can here you can change your password. You can see there's a change password under user account. So it's not if you lost or forgot your password. If you want to set it to something different, you can go ahead and change it in this profile area once you're logged in. So for example, if Judson IT makes you change your Judson password, right? Every 90 days, let's say they do that, and you are forced to change it. So then you have a new email password, my Judson J1 password. eLearn's separate, it doesn't sync. So it's still going to have your old password. But if you want to change it, you can go into your profile and change it to your same password as your other Judson passwords. And this is where you do that. So if you're, I'm the same way, I kind of want to have them all to be the same. So you can reset it right there in your profile of eLearn. Another very important part in this profile here is when you click on the right-hand side, your image, the drop-down, there's a switch role to. If you could see on this kind of where I'm hovering with my mouse, you can switch role to and then pick student. So when you set up stuff in your course and say, I don't know what students see because I have hidden stuff and I have extra stuff. I'm not sure. I want to know what exactly they see when they go into my course. Well, you can switch your role to a student role in the course. And that way you can see exactly what they see in the course. Now, once again, you want to make sure you then switch back to your instructor role, because I get those emails a lot as well, that you switch it to a student role and now you forgot you did that, you left your computer, you came back, and now you don't have any access to add items or, look at the grade book or anything. You got to make sure you switch your role back to instructor when you do that. But that's the two most important things in the profile. I always tell people is, your ability to change your password and to switch your role. The other things you can see under user account on the left are things like preferences, message preferences, notifications. If you are not someone who likes to get emails every time your students submit an assignment or, post on the forum or anything like that, you can change all those notification preferences for your profile in here. So that's something you can adjust. The default is the standard. If they submit a Turnitin assignment, you get an email. If you're subscribed to a forum, it will, send you an email, but you can change those preferences in here. Okay, so now you got into a course, you got access to this course, you understand your dashboard. Now you go into a course. So let me just go into this one course that I'm not teaching till February, just as an example. So here you might say, well, I have all this stuff in the middle, but it's kind of like all congested and small. You have the menus on the left and the right, but there's an X on each one of them that says close, you can close them out. So you can close both sides out, and then you can zoom in and make this bigger if you want. And once again, that's obviously your preference, but then you just click them again to get them back open. Okay. So for example, this course is set up with all these drop downs, right, for each unit. So it's identical on the navigation on the left-hand side. We have all the same drop downs, right? The nice part is though, when you have them open and I want to go to, unit 5, on the left is where I could just jump to unit 5, jump back to unit 2. So it's kind of your navigation throughout the course if you have a lot of information and don't want to scroll. So that's the navigation on the left. That's preset to however you have your course set up by sections. On the right is more of the information blocks. These are, when your students do smart evals at the end of the semester, they can log in directly to smart evals this way. I also want to point out this eLearn technical support area on the right-hand side. This is where you can submit. This is the best way. And I'm not saying, don't email me. I'm just saying this is the best way where you're going to get quick responses to fill out this form, because later I'm going to talk about there's another individual that is working in eLearn as well too. So this form goes to her or myself, depending on, the days we're working and which hours we're working. So if you fill out this form when you have an issue in eLearn, only eLearn, not my Judson email, any of that, and submit it, it will go to one of us right away and then we can respond in a timely manner and look up what issue you might have. So that would be the best way, the quickest way to get support. And that is also the quickest way to get support to notify your students to do that. So let them know if they're having issues. I might not be in, I might be in meetings, but if they submit this form, then it'll go to either me or the other individual named Maren, and we will resolve it. So direct students to that technical support form to fill out in eLearn. And it's on every single page in eLearn. So it's not like it goes away or they can't find it. The only issue, of course, is if they can't log into eLearn, then they can't get to this form. So that's the only issue. But if they're in the course and having questions, they should use that as their support line. Okay, so that's the basic view of a course. On the top right-hand side, I want to point out is the edit mode. This is as you're an instructor, you turn that on when you want to make edits to the course. So that's a very important button. When you're done, you turn it off. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out. The next thing I wanted to briefly talk about, and you can see by this image, is the amount of activities and resources you can add in eLearn, and there's a ton of them, right? So let me go to it here. If I have my editing on in my course, and I go to whichever section I want to add something to, I do add an activity or resource under at the bottom of that section. And that's where all these choices come up, right? It's saying what kind of activity or resource do you want to add? And you might not know when you go to this spot, right? You might be like, I don't know what I want to add. I don't know what's available. Well, the nice part about this is that each activity or resource has a star, which once again, you can star it as a favorite, and an I. So the I is information. So if you click on that, it will give you a whole text and a help link on what that activity or resource is. So in some cases, it'll say how you can even use that resource or that activity. So for example, let me see. If I usually go to activities more than resources. A choice is like a poll activity you can do within a course. So if I click on the I, this will say, oh, a choice activity may be used as a quick poll to stimulate thinking on a topic, to test students' understanding, to facilitate student decision-making. So it'll give you ideas on what that activity is used for. And then you can hit add if you want to add it to the course or just go back to this list. So this is kind of a good area when you're trying to figure out, well, I want to do a certain thing in my course, but I'm not exactly sure what activity or how I put that in there. You can go through this list and look at the information for all of these activities and kind of figure out how you might want to incorporate that into your class. Yeah, so that was activities. There's also resources. Resources are more like an item, a folder, a file, a poster, a URL, and that's how you would add those as well. They also have the information button that you can look at any time. Like I said, there's a starred area as well. So if I star that I add folders a lot, then I go in my starred tab. These are my frequently used activities or resources that I can star, so I don't always have to go and look through all of them. If there's one I like, I could star it and I can remember it's in my starred area and go access it at any point. I'm going to stop for a second. Does anyone have any questions yet on anything I've gone over?
I don't have any.
No,
Okay.
good information.
Yes,
Oh,
it
good.
is.
Information.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Thanks for the feedback. If you ever have any questions, just like I said, just go ahead and unmute yourself and come on in and ask a question and interrupt. It's not a big deal. I'd rather get your questions answered today than anything else. But so that's basically how you add an activity or resource to your course. And when you add that, it just shows up at the end. You can always drag and drop these items. If I wanted this news announcement up higher, I just drag it and drop it. Could drag it back, so you can rearrange any of the items by just dragging and dropping them.
A quick question.
Yes.
Is there a theme or system to the color coordination of these activities?
I mean, well, yeah, I don't see any. I just see a bunch of different colors. I think the resources look like they're all blue. So that's items you're adding, but the activities look like they're all just random color icons, in my opinion. I see these games that you
Yep.
can add to your courses are pink, but I don't see a specific color coding that they've done. They're probably just random icons.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. That was a good question, and I've never thought about that. Okay, some other things. Let's see. Okay, yeah, you can drag and drop files right into eLearn as well from your desktop or a folder. You can drag and drop them in. The other things that I kind of wanted to go over, let's see, gradebook. Okay. I don't want to overwhelm anyone today, but I'll try not to. But the gradebook, is in the grades area on the top tab. So when you click that, you're defaulted to I always think of it kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, right? So it's your students on the left. This course hasn't been taught yet, so there's no grades in here, but the students on the left, and then all the items all the way to the right, and then you have your course total. So if you are, adding items like a foreign or assignment, you might be grading them in the assignment and the grades will automatically show up in these boxes. But you can also override it by just typing a score, a point value in each box as well, and adding any kind of comment you want on the right-hand side. This view I think is always kind of hard to look at some point. And I think a lot of faculty are like, well, I can't tell what my grade book equals, the total. So the one I go to most frequently is the grader report dropdown, and I go to gradebook setup. Yeah, I'm not saving changes. So when I go to gradebook setup, this shows me all of my items if I have them weighted by category and their points. So then I scroll to the bottom, my course equals 100 points. I can see each unit total here and each item total all the way to the right of it. So that's kind of a view to see what your gradebook setup looks like. Then to go back is the grader report here is like I said, the actual items. If you want to see what a student sees when they look at their gradebook, under this drop down under grader report, you can go to user report. So if I click on user report, then I select any user from that drop down. This is exactly what they see when they look at their grades. So they'll see their items, they'll see their grade here, the grade range, the percentage, and then any feedback you gave them, whether it's a file or just some text you typed in there, good job, watch this for the next assignment, improve in this area. That's all going to be here. So this is exactly what the student sees. This is also nice if they come up to you in a face-to-face class and have questions about their grades. You don't want to bring up the whole grade book, right? Because you don't want them to see everybody's grade. But if you go into this user report and just bring up their grade and their grades, then you can go through it with them this way. So that's a important point is to use that when you're doing that. So those are kind of the main ones I use: the grader report, the user report, and the gradebook setup. There's a whole bunch of other options. Also export. I know some faculty like to export it, and you can export your whole gradebook to an Excel file and then save it as your own copy on your desktop for either historical purposes. If you want to do any other calculations or manipulations with the data, you would want to export it to Excel and do that there.
Dawn,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I have a question. In the
Sure.
past, I've had issues with overriding grades.
Mm-hmm.
There are, of course, preset, and I don't know, is there a better way of doing it? I'm assuming there are multiple ways of overriding, and maybe I'm not doing it the most efficient way or the most, I don't know, foolproof way, but I've had a hard time.
Yeah, if you override it, like if you just typed in here, the issue with that is this is like, well, not that one. Let's say this forum. If I just type in, they got a 5 on this forum, it's not going to change unless I go back in the gradebook and change it here. So when you're in the forum grading, if you give them a 3, but you gave them a 5 here, you've already overridden the grade. It's going to stay as a 5. So that becomes the issue. So I always suggest you grade the items in the assignment. Your first pass in the assignment, you put in the grades there from the course site, not in the grade book. It shows up here automatically then if you put that in through the assignment, if you're grading that way. So, but then if you come in here to the grade book and you want to override that previous grade, you just type over it and then it's set. you can't then change it back in the assignment. It's set here in the grade book until you take an override off, which is through this little gear icon to edit the grade that way.
Don, you're saying grade in the assignment. Would you clarify that, please?
Yeah, sure. Let me go to the front of this course. So if I had let's see, where's an assignment? This discussion forum. So if I go into this discussion forum, when they start posting items, I can select the drop down and give them 3 out of 5 for this forum within this assignment, right? And then it automatically goes to the grade book. So I'm grading it within that assignment, whether it's a forum or an assignment. I'm not grading it. I'm not putting the grades in through the grade book. I'm putting the grades in through the assignment. So if I gave them a 5 in that forum, I would come over here and that 5 would automatically be in this spot. Now, if I change that to a 6 here in the grade book, I now overrode that grade from the assignment.
And
Does
that
that-
override will
yeah.
stand, right? That override becomes the primary and it will stand.
Yes, it will stand, and this field will be orange. That's how you know it was an override. So that's the same thing with like a quiz. If a quiz gets automatically graded, whether you have, it multiple choice, or if you grade it in the quiz, their essay, and you assign point values to those quiz questions, the quiz total score will be here. But if you come in here and they got a, I don't know, 5.75 and you want to round it to a 6 and you override it by typing a 6 in, that 6 will stay. You can't go back into the assignment and adjust it. You can, but the grade you override in the grade book will stay unless you take the override off and clear it out again.
So the situation that I usually encounter is that when I try to grade an assignment, it doesn't show up in the grade book. So that's why I'm doing like manually putting in the points that they've earned.
Yeah, it should show up. I mean, it is completely linked, so it should show up. If you have that situation, I'd say email me and let me know.
Okay.
But I know
I've hit it a couple.
times,
Yeah, I've hit it a couple of times.
yeah, I know a lot of times issues come up when faculty have multiple gradebook windows open. So if you have, a screen of your gradebook, and then you also have the screen of the assignment, and then you're putting grades in the assignment, and it's coming over the gradebook, but you have the gradebook open with the edit mode on, there could be some kind of confusion that way. So I would just say only have, one gradebook window open at a time. I don't know if that, helps at all, Stoica, but it's like that I know has some kind of communication issue when you have multiple gradebooks open, because it doesn't know which one's the most recent one you want to save.
It is helpful because I mean, it has happened a number of times. So apparently there is something that I'm not quite doing right.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I would make sure just have one, first off, just have one window open of eLearn, grade all the assignments, then go into gradebook. Because I've done that too before, where I had multiple tabs. So I'm like, oh, I want to look at the gradebook while I'm grading an assignment, or look at this, and then I forget I have another one open, and then it gets confused. And then what it does is kind of locks them all and overrides them all, makes the whole column orange, because it doesn't know which grade you want to keep. Okay, did anyone else have any other gradebook questions while I'm in the gradebook?
Dawn,
Yes.
I've gone into the setup, the grade book, and since I inherited some of my eLearn sites from previous instructors, there's things in there that I don't want, that I'm not using, right?
Yeah.
So I've tried to eliminate those things from the grade book, and I haven't been able to.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what that is. So if you see this participation one I have here in this gradebook setup, this is like a manual column that I just type in a score for. So I'm able to just edit and delete it right here in the gradebook setup. Okay. But like this forum, that's an actual assignment. I don't have that delete button here. Right. So what I have to do is I have to go to the front of the course and I have to delete it from here. So I find that forum I don't want anymore. I make sure editing's on. I do the 3 little dots, and then I can hit delete here. Once I do that, it automatically removes that column from the gradebook.
Awesome.
And that
That's
goes
really
for,
helpful.
yeah, good. That goes for assignments, forums, the type of things where you add them and they automatically create a column in the grade book. You have to delete them from the course site, not from the grade book.
Gotcha. One other question,
Sure.
that feedback column that the students see,
Mhm.
when sometimes I'll give say like a paragraph of feedback, but
Yeah.
because that column is so narrow, it ends up only being 1 or 2 words at a time, and they crack up that they have to read like this really long, narrow strip. Do I
Oh,
have any
and
way of changing that?
in the user report, you mean, like this?
Yeah.
You can like remove the percentage. You can remove some of these columns, like the percentage one, I think is the only one you can remove. And that'll fill that in a little larger, but I also, like I said at the beginning, you can close out these menus. You see that like left and right-hand side makes the screen bigger. So, it'll have more, I do paragraphs as well. And I think that kind of helps because the actual area gets longer as well too. So,
Gotcha.
if you just make the screen bigger, you could, adjust I would tell them to adjust their screen size, take the menus off on the left and the right. And that's kind of the only thing you can do at that point. And with browsers, a lot of individuals have different, they zoom in, they zoom out, they change their font sizes. So everybody's looks kind of different based on how they have their browser settings.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else have any other gradebook questions while I'm in the gradebook? Okay. The next thing I'm going to go on to is let's see, ever popular Turnitin assignments. So Turnitin assignments in the past have just been linked to, a plagiarism checker. So what does it do? It pretty much checks anything on the internet, the web, journals, articles, newsletters, and any other papers that anyone has submitted to universities that use Turnitin. So they have a big repository that it checks when a student submits their paper. And this is what when they submit, and I cropped student names out because I don't obviously want that to be publicized, and we're recording this. So when students submit, this is what a Turnitin assignment produces when you click on as instructor. So you'll see this first paper might be something I want to look at, right? There's an 80% similarity rate on that one. And that might mean they quoted and they properly cited a bunch of things. So I can go in there and it'll show me exactly which links are, that it's taking information from. And you can actually remove those links and get that percentage down for that students if they're properly cited.
Dawn, do we find,
Yes.
do we find that Turnitin component in the activities, add activities? Is that where that's
Yes.
located? Okay.
Yes, that's one activity you can add, correct. Yeah, it's
Okay,
called
thank you.
Turnitin, and it's Turnitin 2 because it was an upgraded version and it's at the bottom in one of the activities. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
So once you add it and set up all your settings, then students are submitting. This is the result of what you see from an instructor perspective. To grade it, you click on the pencil. You see the similarity. They see it as well. Just so you know, they see it as well. And you can give a lot of feedback in this type of assignment activity. You can also see this column here, which I always point out because it doesn't really have a header and no one really knows. But when you see the silhouette like of a little person here, a head, that means they looked at your feedback. So I found a lot of students that are making the same mistakes. I'll say, you're not reading my feedback. You're not looking at it, because you can tell if they actually looked at your feedback through that column there. You can also download their papers through this download button. You can also delete their attempt if you wanted to delete their attempt and have them resubmit it. So the types of feedback that you can give students are a lot in this Turnitin. So I'm not going to go into detail about every single one of them, but I just have this is what I kind of give students as how can they see their feedback. So if this is their paper, the highlighted part is what's coming up as similar to some other source. So they can see that as well. I can add comments and they can hover over them. And they would see comments that I've added in their paper. I can also put in-text comments and feedback right into their paper. Like I said, good examples here. I can also write an overall general feedback about the entire paper here. I could write that, but I could also click on the microphone when I want to put in comments, and I can speak the comments about the paper in this area as well, that they can just then hit the play button and hear all my feedback. I can also attach a rubric to the Turnitin. So if I had a rubric that I could put in there, set up, and then the students themselves can view the rubric as well. So there's many different opportunities on different ways that you can provide feedback to students within Turnitin. Whether you want to use all those or a few of those, that's up to you. So this
Dawn,
is
you've
what,
got about 4 more minutes, so give us the most profound things you have.
okay, I'll go fast. Okay.
That's okay.
So you set up your Turnitin assignment. You saw, the similarity report. This one has an 8 of similarity, so it's just a few items. Then you think you're done, but no, now one of the new features on the bottom, there's an AI here. So this paper has a 94% AI. And what that means, and you can click on it when you see that, and this is what you will get. You will get an entire report on why it's saying this was written in AI. What you want to do with this information as the faculty, you might want to talk to your chairs or ask what their policy is. I'm not going to, and put mine on top of everybody's, but this is where you could see, and you can hit the FAQs, resources, guides, and you can get more information on why it's saying that this whole paper was written in AI, and you can address it with the student as you see fit. The other thing new with eLearn this past year with the upgrades was that you as an instructor can copy between courses. So if you taught a course last fall that you want the same information in this spring, you have the ability through the more option course reuse and import that you can import. Okay, crazy not facts to remember. So if you change your Judson password, it does not change in eLearn. I think I already said that already. If you're not the J1, if you're not in J1 as the instructor, you will not have access to the course. So you got to make sure you're in J1. If all the websites, Judson websites and systems are down, eLearn is not. It's a separate one, but make sure you bookmark that site. Support, eLearn support is not the same as Judson IT support. So use the form in eLearn when you need eLearn support. I'm wrapping up now, BBH. So who do I contact for what? Okay. So for email, J1, my Judson, you do the Judson IT help desk. For eLearn, you do that form on the right-hand side in any of the eLearn pages when you're logged in. What I had said earlier, there's a video that's gone out. I don't know if any of you have seen it yet, but it is an animated video on the eLearn support team and how you contact us and some more information about that. So once you get these PowerPoint slides, you can go ahead and click that link and watch that video. It's about 1 minute. And that is it.
Fabulous. Dawn, how do you pronounce, is it Marin or Marin?
Marin.
Marin, like Mary, Marin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
People like their names pronounced correctly, so.
Yeah, and she has Tuesday, Thursday office hours, which are in that video.
Okay.
So walk-in hours for anyone that's available on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the day. You can walk into her office and she's available to help with eLearn. Otherwise, you can always contact me for an evening Zoom if you're only available in the evenings, and I can accommodate that. Someone had a question on the left. It says, is there a way an instructor can upload a student paper? Yes, in that same area where I showed you what you see is, and you see the percentages, there was an upload button too. So you can actually upload a paper on behalf of a student. And sometimes if I want to check papers that maybe weren't in Turnitin, or if I see a forum posting, I will copy an entire forum posting, put it in a Word document, upload it to Turnitin in a hidden area, and just check its plagiarism in that if I have a sense that that wasn't written by the student.
Thank you.
Good, yes, thank you.
Another,
fabulous.
do we have time for another quick question?
do.
On
Yes, go right ahead,
Turnitin?
Renee.
Yeah. It's 2 parts. Is there a minimum number of words that Turnitin needs to determine whether something is AI generated? And is there a way that I can have students and Turnitin where they have to type their response directly into Turnitin rather than uploading a file?
No, Turnitin is always a file you have to upload, whether it's a PowerPoint or Word document. As far as, I'm sorry, what was the first question? It was,
Minimum number of words to track AI.
yeah, usually for Turnitin, I wouldn't say, you know, if it's just under a paragraph, I wouldn't even submit it through Turnitin unless you have some kind of, you know, issue. But like Turnitin, sometimes if someone is only, I've had a student that just did a title page and submitted it, right? It gave them an error because it doesn't have like, I don't know if it's 250 words or something, but there's a minimum number that you can even submit for a Turnitin paper. So I think that would be similar to the AI one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we're going to keep moving through the agenda. Dawn, fabulous, thank you. I have the feeling you'll be asked to return again, just, you know, welcome to this world. Here we go.
Oh, no.
One of the results of the survey we conducted in 22-23, and then the focus groups, was that many of the adjuncts said they didn't know where to go to get information. So here is the eLearn site for adjuncts that's been created. Here it is. Are you seeing this?
Yes.
Good, because
Yes,
I'm
I
not.
can see it.
Okay, good. All right. This lists all of the different major categories that were requested from us. That these are the areas where you need information. So for example, in getting started, where do you go to find out, how do you find out about parking or about keys? And so what I've done is gathered information for you and done a cut and paste from a variety of sources, or I just made it up if I couldn't find the material, you know, so if it's wrong, you know, what can I say? By and large, some of these things are just easily accessible, but if you don't know where to go to find them, it's just very difficult to do so. Renee, this one came about because you asked. You said, I need a map. I need to know where to go. So thank you for asking for that. Remuneration, which would be your pay, course contracts, adjunct offices. How do you find out where to go? How to get your keys? We've also put in here, oh, I just went out of my website. Isn't that lovely? Services and support. Okay, let's go to that one for a moment. All of these have drop downs. Got a J1 video. Our registrar created this for you, and it will show you how to do certain things in J1. If I can get over here. So those are all my downloads, but you can find out how to access your class list, how to use J1, and Dr. Petit-Young is going to talk about that in just a moment as well. Course materials and syllabus repository. As an adjunct, you may not know that we have a syllabus repository, and after you finish your syllabus, hopefully, before you go into your first class, you place that in the syllabus repository. So we have a history of all the courses taught. In fact, when you come in as a new adjunct, your chair may send you to the syllabus repository to see previous syllabi, and then you can use, adapt, revise, or go, I don't want to do that at all. That will be entirely your choice. This then takes us to, we have 5 options here. Training. Oh, I keep going out of that crazy thing. Training, and this is probably where I will put the recording, I hope, of this session, but this is where you can find out information that can help you. Campus resources, we said, I don't know where to go to find out information. Okay, this is about campus services, the library, academic policies, how to enter your grades, how do students appeal their grades, what about late work? Okay, Dawn had mentioned plagiarism policy. We do have a policy at the university, and that's where you'll find it. FERPA. FERPA is if you have a parent call you and say, I need to know how my son is doing in your class, that information can only be given if the student has signed the ability for you to give that information. I had several years ago a parent call me and say, I need to know if my son's getting up for your class, and in fact, would you call him and wake him up? Yeah, that was an interesting conversation. And I just had to take a deep breath and then say, well, one of the things we try to do here is teach our students how to become an adult. And one aspect of being adult is getting up in the morning for class. No, I can't tell you if he's doing that, but I would suggest. And then I gave her several options of things she could do for her son. So you're going to get some interesting conversations going with parents. You cannot divulge any information unless they've signed that FERPA. My advice to you is go into this eLearn site. You have to self-enroll, but once you do that, you have total access to this. And if you have any questions on anything that's posted there, shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to go back and look at it, see if I've made a mistake. I do know we have one area, Dr. Petit Young and I looked at it a couple times this week, the NIXL, which is an emergency notification if there's an active shooter on campus, or what if something's going on you need to know about right away. We're going to go back and verify all that information is correct. That's the only thing that we're not quite sure about because we haven't used it for so long. Maybe nothing's gone wrong. Let's hope that's what it is. So let me stop share. Are there any questions on this? Or do you just need to go play in it for a while?
I think we need to play into it. This is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Good,
Very
I hope
helpful.
so. Okay, and really, or if there's anything you see or you don't see that you need, let me know, because then I'll come right back. This is going to be a living document that changes through the years as the need becomes evident. So, all right, then I'm going to take and move you on to our Chief Academic Officer, Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Petit Young.
Hi, everybody. All right,
Good morning.
full disclosure, BBH and I talked about this yesterday, and she had asked Jenny Guth, our registrar, to come and talk about J1, and Jenny was unable to do it. And so I said, well, I can maybe sort of kind of do that. So I am not the expert, but we need somebody to help show you some of this stuff. And so that's my plan. And feel free to ask questions. I just may not have all the answers because I don't know it as well as our registrar's office does. And a lot of this stuff is in process even now. I don't know how many of you are around in the fall, but this move to J1 has been, it's just been a nightmare in many, many ways in trying to get everything to work right. So and we're still not quite done navigating and working and setting things up and making sure everything's talking to each other. And, that whole thing that Dawn talked about where eLearn has to get information from J1 in order to populate those courses, et cetera. I mean, we've just had tons of issues over the last few months trying to get all this set up. It's in much better shape now than it was last fall. So if you're teaching again this spring, hopefully it will go much, much better. So let me share my screen with you as well. All right, so we have, this is where you would log into My Judson. So if I'll go ahead and log in to My Judson, then up here we have a community and we have this employee information tabs. And actually you might use either or both of them. One of the things that we often have faculty do, including adjuncts, is take students on field trips. And if you want to do that, there is a field trip form that you fill out to get approval. And once that approval happens, which almost invariably, I don't think I've turned one down in years. So the approval is not a big deal, except for the record keeping, which is important. So if you want to see what field trips have been approved and what students are approved to go on those field trips, so a student comes to you and says, I have to miss class because I have a field trip, and you want to double check that, then you would go to community. Under community, we have down here events calendar. So you would choose events calendar. And then at the very bottom of all of those different calendars is a field trips calendar. You would choose that calendar. And then hopefully this calendar will populate. Well, there should be a calendar here. There it is. Okay. So you can see here in, I guess this is January 12th, yesterday, there was an architecture 352 field trip. Up here, there's going to be an interior design. There's an honors event here. So I put into this calendar any approved field trip activity event. If you actually click on the event, then you get to see it generates the times, the dates, and it's scrolling at the very bottom is a list of names of students. So these are the students who are going on this particular trip. And so you can double check to make sure your student's name is there if you need to do that. Now, you won't be able to edit. I don't believe you'll have editing capabilities, but you should be able to read who's available and who's not. Probably even if you double click, it'll come up as a big screen. Actually, I haven't tried that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Does that also count for athletic events and music events, absences, or just field trips?
Just no athletics. They do their own thing, and they send out those weekly announcements. I asked if they would like to do this, and they said no. So they send out a weekly announcement at the beginning of the week. Sometimes we don't get it until Monday. They're supposed to send it out earlier, but they don't always. And that has a list of all the games for the week and a list of the rosters. So they do their own thing. Now music, the choir trips are on here. We consider those field trips. So music events, if they're going like the choir trip, or if an ensemble is going somewhere to perform, they send that through me and I do post those.
Thank you.
All right, so that's probably the only reason you ever need to be under community. Everything else is under the employee info tab. So we go back to that, and I don't know if you'll ever be doing something that costs money and you need to get reimbursed. Typically, you probably wouldn't be, but if so, the reimbursement form is here. So if you need to get reimbursed for mileage or whatever, you have to work with your chair in order to get all those things approved, etc. But that's where one of the forms can be found. Probably most of these forms are not things that you would need. If you're interested, there's other information over here. iPads is our it's our listing of all the students who are registered. It's separated by department, how many students here and how many students in that department. It's just information that we have to provide to the government. If you're interested in looking at it, this information is available to you to look at. The student handbook is here if you're ever curious about what it says, and our strategic plan. If you're ever interested in seeing what we're doing, all of that is available under just the employee info tab. Now, most of what you need to do is under faculty over here. So you're in the employee info page, but then on this far left, you choose faculty to get into J1. So there are specific faculty forms that might be needed. Most of you probably won't be using those. Here's a place for the SMART evals, the evaluations, and again, another access to the syllabus repository if you want to see the catalog. But most of the time, what you need to do is go into J1. And here is another way to get at those same videos that BBH mentioned earlier, the how-to videos. And these are all created by the registrar's office. So let me just show you the different types of videos that they've done. How to view a class roster, how to report attendance for census, how to enter grades. And then if you're an advisor, which I don't know that any of you are advisors, but then there's information for advisors as well. So each of these have written instructions as well as a video. So you can watch the video or read the plan. Let me get back to where I was. Up here to faculty. Then to get into J1, to actually do what those videos tell you how to do, you would go into J1 and oh my goodness, I often have weird things happening here, often. So, and I don't know why. I'm going to try to sign in even though it shouldn't look like this, and it does. If not, I end up going back. Okay, let me go back. Let me go back here. Let me try it again. This time it worked. I have no idea why that does that. It does it to me all the time. So, all right. So now I want to get into J1. I have to use my Judson ID, the one that has to change every 90 days. We are doing that now. Sign in. And hopefully it'll work right. Try it again. I have no idea what's going on here. Well, maybe I won't show you any of this. Okay, I'm going to log out of some of this stuff, close it out, and start over. Okay, let me try this again. J1, sign in. I hope it doesn't happen to you all the time, but it happens to me all the time. I
Magic.
don't know.
Lynette, sometimes that happens to me, and what I do is basically just delete the last character of my password or my login, and then just re-enter it. Because sometimes if you have an auto populates that, it gets confused.
Yeah, I end up
Just like delete the last character, add the last character, then it'll work. It's usually
Yeah. It's weird. But anyway, sometimes it doesn't matter. So I end up backing out and going back in. But here we go. Now up here, what I have and what you have is going to be different because I have different access, different authority than you do. And I'm not currently teaching a class. So you should be able to, under student, go down here to faculty where you can manage your course list. Now, if I do that, unfortunately, I don't have any, but if you click that, your courses should populate. I don't have any courses, but I do have access to everybody's courses. So what I can do is I think I can do it here. So let's say I want to look at math courses, because that's what I would be teaching if I were teaching. And apply. Okay, I have to get back out.
If
I have to
everybody
get
would
back
go
out
back and
because
mute, go ahead and mute everybody again because we're hearing voices in the background, please.
thanks. All right, so because I don't have any courses, I can't show you what that looks like. I can go into academic departments instead of faculty because I do have access to everybody. And I can go in here and under manage sections, I can pull up a course. Now I have access to everybody. In fact, I have every single course we offer, which isn't really helpful right now. But if I were to pick any one of these courses, then over here, the actions are, you can view your class roster, manage attendance, and manage grades. That's where you would go once your course is populated. If I view roster, it should come up. It's going to take it a minute. Here it comes. There's the roster of students who are in this class. I can contact the students. You can click on this and get information about the students, etc. The filters over here changed automatically, but this is how you would generate your class list. If you went back to where you were before, you could also enter grades, etc. And the videos that the registrar's office created show you how to do this stuff as well. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to mention, so let me back up again, is actually in, let me go into J1 here. Oh, one of the things that shows up under forms and resources is the, here's your academic dishonesty plagiarism form, an incomplete form if you ever have a student and you need to give them an incomplete grade, Or if you made a mistake in entering that final grade and you need to change it, we can do that here. Those are typical things that you would do. If you wanted to, and here's where if you wanted to do a field trip, this is where you would go to fill out all the information I need in order to get approval, but this is where you would enter that information. Here's the final exam schedule. That sort of thing is all available here under forms and resources for the faculty in My Judson. This is not J1, this is back to My Judson.
Lynette, we have a question about emailing that I know it has changed from the first Jen Sabar to now. Fred had commented he sent an email, what he thought was to the whole class, and they didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that works in J1. That
It doesn't.
should work through eLearn. eLearn has the capability for you to email the entire class from eLearn.
Good, right, Dawn?
Yeah, I was just going to jump on and say that. Yeah, you can email your entire class, even just through an announcement, which is kind of the best way to do it. Because once you post an announcement in the course, it automatically emails it out to all your students as well. So it's a record in the course under announcements, but it's an email in their email as well.
There's always a workaround.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Fred, for bringing that up.
Yep. One of the other issues that might be something that you would come across is if you have a student that you're worried about, that you recognize they're not coming to class, or they're coming to class and they're sleeping, or they're not turning in assignments, or anything that you think, you know, this student is in trouble, whatever kind of trouble that might be. If you want to notify us, J1 does have a student referral system, but I don't think it's working yet. So it's there, and you may be tempted to go ahead and fill out that form, which down the road is definitely the way to do it. But right now, the best thing to do is our registrar has asked that you send her an email, Jenny Guth, G-Guth, G-G-U-T-H, at judsonu.edu, that you send her an email directly explaining who the student is and why you're worried. And then she will forward that on to the people who need to get involved and try to intervene and help. So if there are student issues at this point right now, we're just asking for emails to go to the registrar directly. She'll hang on to all of them and direct them as needed. Someday we'll have all this other stuff working, and then there'll be a form you could fill out and it would get sent automatically to people. But right now that's not working, and we don't want to miss any opportunities to intervene and support our students. Okay, those were the major things that I thought at this point you would probably need to see. Are there other questions that I might not be able to answer? Or maybe I can?
Lynette, why don't you address what to do if a student doesn't show up?
Oh, okay. At the very beginning, I just, if you don't have a student showing up the first week of class and they have not contacted you to say, you know, I'm out of town, I got held up by the storm, I can't get there till Monday or whatever. If they have not contacted you, then we ask that you submit an AWF grade for them in the grades, that it's a withdrawal. Because we need, certainly, I know this week we started on, or this term we started on a Wednesday instead of a Monday. So it could be that we could wait until next Wednesday. It's so a week into classes. If the student has not been there in a week, then we need to remove them from the rosters. We need to get them out because of financial aid implications, other kinds of implications. We could be in trouble with the government and lose our ability to offer financial aid if we're not keeping accurate records of the students' attendance in that regard. Now, as far as attendance throughout the term, that's up to you how you want to handle that. Although if a student does drop out at some point and they quit coming and we end up giving them an F, or if there's some issue with it, they just stop. We do need to record the date of last attendance. So we do have to keep track in some way so that you can recognize if a student is not showing up, when is the last day they showed up. Other than that, for our traditional courses, we don't require attendance. The non-traditional in the adult program, they have a different policy about attendance. And there you have to follow their policy, but they have much shorter courses, so they have much tighter rules. But in general, we need to hear from everyone the first week. At the end of the first week of classes, if you have a student who hasn't shown up, we need to know. And then if they quit coming later on, we need to know when's the last day they attended. Those are the major issues about attendance. I can stop sharing, I think, now.
What we need for you to know is if you have questions, this information is now available in the Adjunct eLearn site. You can also go to My Judson and get this information as well. But if all else fails, check with your chair. If they don't know the answer, then check with me and I'll get you the person who does. Renee, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, I remember last academic year that I would get emails pretty regularly that would remind me to go in and do the J1 accounting for, are the students engaged? Are they showing up? Those types of things. I don't seem to be getting those emails this academic year.
Yeah, when we changed from the My Judson that we were using before, Genzabar before, to J1, we lost the ability to do that.
Right.
So in the grade book before, we were able to add a first half of the midterm engagement grade, and the second half of the term, another engagement grade. Those have gone. We will be asking you for midterm grades, yes, but that's it. We don't have the ability to do that in J1.
Okay, good. So it's not a matter of, I was worried I dropped off of a listserv or something like that, but no, okay, great.
No, we're paying extra money to not be able to do that. Isn't that good to know, Renee? What can I say? Thank you, Dr. Petit-Young, for that.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, she's more than willing to answer.
Looks like Dennis was waving at us.
Yes, one question, in regard to the informing the instructors about students that are dropping or adding. We used to get an email that a student would drop a course, and I noticed that a student had been missing for two weeks in a row, so I went into the roster and they had disappeared, but we did not get an email informing us right away when that student dropped. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, that's another one of the things that with the switch to J1, that process is no longer automatic. I don't know if they intend to get that back or not, but at this point, it's not happening. No.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dennis, for asking. Now, Lynette just mentioned that the policy for the professional program, DPS, the adult program, and traditional is different. And right now, as much as possible, I have delineated those two different groups in the new Adjunct eLearn site. Lynette and I are talking about, should we create two different sites? We don't know yet. We're in process. We need your feedback because you're the ones we're trying to serve, please. All right, at this point,
I have a question, maybe
Yes.
a quick one.
Okay.
And maybe it's another one of those that the new management system has dropped out that option, but it was very helpful when we entered the grades to get an email confirming that the grades were entered. At this point, when I enter, I'm not sure, are they safe? I mean, I click save and I just hope that they are. There's no like feedback immediate, like you're set, you're done. Is it me or is that how the system is?
Yeah, Jennifer.
That is, Stoika, you're right on that. And so I'm going to encourage people to go back and just look at J1 after they've entered, and you'll see different categories of students like graded, registered, dropped. If there's no one in your registered and there's people in your graded, that means you have everything all done.
Okay.
So just as a follow-up on that, I haven't taught for quite a number of months. You mean, Stoika, that, and Jennifer too, you know, that feedback we get and it tells us to answer a quick questionnaire. We don't have that anymore?
Nope, that went away too. So we're working on some alternative because that's your input on those courses is so valuable. But that automatic email, that whole survey system went away with this new transition as well.
Oh, I see. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's happening now for your contracts is Lori goes in and just double checks that everything has been graded to release that. So that's added a little extra to her. So you're not having to forward those emails to her anymore either.
Okay.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks for asking, Olabisi. All right, we have our last 30 minutes for Chat GPT. We have now had Dawn talk to us about Turnitin, but Elaine Roberts is one of our adjuncts extraordinaire. She's an adjunct in English. She's an adjunct in education. She's been a full-time faculty member. She has her own company. The woman does it all. So now that, what is it they say? Under expect and over produce, but you know, I'm giving you both. You're just go for it, Elaine. Thank you for talking about this today. It's all yours.
Thank you, I think. Okay. All right, sharing my screen. And let's go. So because we seem not to be able to do much without PowerPoint. So as Dawn said, if you have any questions at any point in time, just pop them in chat or come off mute and let me know what your questions are. So I've been doing a lot of research, talking with a lot of colleagues who've been using Chat GPT in their classrooms since last spring. And I've been experimenting with it in my classroom. And I know that this is one of those ongoing concerns and challenges that we just kind of need to get used to because it's coming. Now, what I'm showing you first, these first several slides are slides that I'm going to be showing to my students when I introduce artificial intelligence to them, because my objective is to make sure that they know how to use it correctly, effectively, and ethically. Probably that more than the rest. So we'll talk a little bit about artificial intelligence because they really don't understand what it is. They know that it's a technology tool, but they don't understand how it works. So I will show them a video that lets them know how to use Bing Chat. And we'll just kind of walk through that because there's more than one tool. ChatGPT is the one that most of us know. We'll talk a little bit about this because I want them to understand that generative AI chatbots are different and there are a number of them out there. A lot of folks refer to them as conversational generative AI chatbots, but they're not search tools. So they need to understand the differences between those, which, by the way, will change pretty much every minute of every day. So everything that I'm telling you today is pretty much no longer true by tomorrow, maybe not quite that fast. So I want them to understand that if they're using artificial intelligence in an area where they have no knowledge, they can't supervise it. What they don't understand is how artificial intelligence gathers its information and that it is gathering information from everywhere. I went to a session at an education conference last spring, and one of the presenters is a fourth grade teacher, and she said, for all I know, ChatGPT is pulling stuff from the blogs my fourth graders wrote 5 years ago. So that should give you cause and pause. So just helping them understand that AI scrapes information from pretty much every place. ChatGPT for a while was limited, but now they've opened the spigot so they can get information pretty much as it goes out. But they also need to understand they have to manage it because AI cannot be trusted. So I'll break it down for them so they understand. I won't go into a lot of details here because most of them really will not care. But I want them to understand that ChatGPT has been around for a while. It's not something that just, to most of us, it just sprang on to the horizon last year, but helping them understand that it has evolved and it will continue to evolve. So thinking about the fact that it's got to have parameters, it's got to be trained, it's got to be fine-tuned. They don't know any of that and really need to understand how that works. But we'll focus mostly on this piece. So a friend of mine is teaching an AP computer science course, and she said that she was able to get the PDF of the standards and of the book the College Board created, fed all of that. This takes time, by the way, because of the word count limitations that all of these tools have. She fed all of that into a custom bot that she created specifically for AP Computer Science, and then students tested it. The reason she did that, though, is she wanted them to understand that the data they use is data that people have given the chatbot, and it has to be fine-tuned. It has to be clarified. So I'll talk to my students a little bit then about what the G and the P and the T stand for. G, generative. I give the chatbot a prompt. It generates a response based on the patterns that it finds, the words that it recognizes. For those who are familiar with the way searches work within the internet, it's very similar to the spider search and the way it looks for terms, and then it looks for matches, and then it looks for, which is why search engine optimization is so important. So blah, blah, blah. And most of them won't care about that. Most of you don't care about that. But the fact of the matter is that it's considered conversational because I will have to continue to clarify and refine the search to get what I really want. But that means that the students need to know what they really want. I had some students last semester, I had them do some analysis of stuff. They'd plug in the article and they would tell ChatGPT, analyze this article. And it would give them an analysis, not a good one, but it would give it to them. And because they really didn't know what they were trying to accomplish, the work was poor. We'll just call it poor. Let them know the P stands for it's being pre-trained. They don't understand that the model has to be trained over time. So give it data, help it find patterns, help it. I have an example of a model that was trained using all of the works of Shakespeare, and then another one that was using all of the works of Austen, and how it looked for patterns so that it could be able to mimic language. So it's finding that balance, and that's what they don't really understand, is that it has to be trained. It has to figure out patterns so that it can predict responses that are likely to be appropriate and quite possibly correct. This is one of the reasons that most chatbots have tremendous biases. Now, I shouldn't say tremendous. They're better about that, but at the very beginning, ChatGPT was terribly biased. And part of that was simply because of the data it was pulling, the patterns it was finding. I could go widgety on you and say the taxonomy and the structure behind it that was being used to be able to find the patterns, because computers are only as smart as the programmers who program them. So then you've got folks who are in there who are fine-tuning it, making sure that the model is trained and can find different kinds of patterns. And then there's this entire process of what's called reinforcement learning, and then reinforcement learning from human feedback to make sure that the patterns are in fact accurate. So I know most of my students will not care about this, but I want them to understand that there's a lot of human interaction behind ChatGPT working the way it does. And the T, last of all, is for transformer. So this friend of mine who teaches the AP Computer Science class, she was the one who came up with this example about the encyclopedias, and I thought, well, that'll work for some of us. And some of our students may remember seeing these in school libraries. So the Encyclopedia Britannica, of course, and the World Book that always put together with this nifty picture. And so, yeah, we would do this, and some students were known to have simply copied what they found in those encyclopedias. Shocking, but if they waited till the last minute, yeah, that's what they ended up doing. But the transformer is more along the lines of the fact that when we've all had that conversation where we've given somebody an answer or some sort of response, and they'll say, can you say that again? I'm like, no, because I cannot replicate that response identically. I just can't. So as ChatGPT continues to learn, its responses will continue to be transformed as it finds more patterns, as it gathers more data, as it figures out how to refine the information that it has based on the structure that works behind the scenes of the chatbot. So I tell my kiddos, this is what I'll be talking with them, is that they have to go through a process. They have to learn how to use whatever tool they're going to use, and we're going to experiment with ChatGPT and Copilot. because they have to have a better understanding of how to make it work. They can't do one and done. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay. I don't see anything in the chat. So problems with it, pre-training requires the model to consume. There's no capacity for context, no capacity for comprehension. So when it was fed that 200-page College Board AP computer science book, it just gulped it down, right? Has no understanding. So it doesn't get sarcasm. It doesn't get satire. Breaks my heart a little bit, but it's probably just as well. It cannot detect objectivity, accuracy, or any biases. So again, it just consumes data. And if it's garbage in, it's going to be garbage out. And so because of the way the data comes in, biases can be introduced if it's not pre-trained correctly and if it's not fine-tuned correctly. So what can it do? It's terrible with sources. You can get sources if you prompt it correctly. All APA ChatGPT doesn't do MLA, it only does APA. But you can't trust that they will exist. So sometimes it just makes up references. So that's kind of, which is ironic in that it can't lie because it can't make up a falsehood, but it can hallucinate, which seems kind of contradictory. It won't respond to questions that promote hate or discrimination. I haven't tested that, but I take my colleagues' research under advisement there. It cannot yet judge or evaluate or provide recommendations or suggestions, although people try to use it for that, which I find curious. It's not creative. It only pulls from stuff and offers you a draft of this information it's pulled together. So that's what I want the students to understand. So this is what I will tell my students in my class. They will have to have specific permission to use AI. They can use it to draft and revise. They will have to review their any links that AI cites. They will have to include a link to the final conversation. And my recommendation is that if they find any errors or any biases, that they let AI know about that. So these are the rules I'm going to ask my students to follow. I'm going to let them know that roughly 85 million jobs are predicted to disappear because of AI. That's according to the World Economic Forum and a report they did in October 2020. That data has since been modified, but the numbers are still quite high. Roughly 90 million jobs are predicted to be created, but knowing it and how to use it and how to use it well. So I'm going to have my students sign an agreement so that I know that they know what the rules are. And I'm going to make sure that they hand that agreement to me or send it to me if they're with me in an online class, because I want to have the record that they have paid attention to that agreement. So that's what I'll be telling my students about. Now, what about you guys? Oh, I see somebody in the chat. Hold, please. Is there a stated policy? I don't know of one, but Dr. Petit-Young or Dr. Buckley-Hughes may have some input on that.
We, our standard plagiarism policy is the only policy we have. Basically, students submitting work that's not their own is not allowed. In how you catch that, how you manage that, depends. But in terms of using ChatGPT or other sorts of things, what we're asking faculty to do is, some faculty want to communicate, it is not allowed for any reason whatsoever in my class, and you make that clear in your syllabus and in your conversations with the students. As long as it's in the syllabus and communicated, then you can penalize them for doing that. Others want to use it as a teaching tool in some of the ways that Elaine has described. So you put that in your syllabus and you follow that. So basically we are letting the faculty choose how and if they want to allow their students to engage. And we just ask you to make it clear in your syllabus to what degree, to what amount. and that you make that clear to the students. And I've already had appeals where the faculty member said this was AI generated. The student says, no, it wasn't. It was my own. And, one by one, individual cases going to have to try to navigate that world. And it is, by the time it gets to me, it's a mess, but that's the way it is. So it helps me the most if you are extremely clear in your syllabus about what kind of usage is okay and under what circumstances and when it's not.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Lynette. So 2 questions, additional questions in the chat. Okay, 3 now. I am teaching 101, English 101, English 102, and I am also teaching English 380, the Gen Ed literature course. All of my colleagues in 101 and 102 have a similar kind of information, pointing out to what Lynette just said in their syllabus, in that they can either say, yes, you can use AI, or no, you can't use AI. I will also go back to something that Dawn said. The thing is that AI detectors are I was going to say terrible. Some of them are terrible, but they're not yet accurate. They don't do a great job of truly detecting. If you choose to use the Turnitin AI detector or any other detector, my suggestion to make your job and Lynette's job easier is to go back to the student and say, I think you may have used AI here, and I need you to convince me that you didn't. I think that could be an option. But let me also say, okay, there's a lot of stuff happening in the chat here. Dr. Martin, I'm going to show you how to cite it in just a little bit. And I'm going to show you some ways that you can use AI in your classes. And one of the things that I also tell my students is that there is a policy for cheating. I included in my syllabus, and as we talk about AI, I try to explain to them why a lot of people consider it plagiarism, because it doesn't cite its sources. It's just scraping stuff from everywhere. So it's no respecter of copyright. It's no respecter of anything. So that's one of the reasons that they have to be very, very cautious about making sure that it cites its sources, and that its sources citations, that's hard to say, are accurate. Okay, so I have one more chat here.
I think Dawn just tried to pop in for a moment. Dawn, did you want to add something to the conversation?
Oh, but you know what, Dawn, hold on that thought just for a second, because I think I'm going to show something, and then you can I'll come back to you to amplify what I'm going to show them. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. All right. So should we be trying to do this? Blah, blah. Okay. So, all right. So this is something I want you to understand, is that students are learning how to make their cheating less detectable. And this is an example of a prompt that students may learn how to do. This actually made my heart stop for a second or two when I heard this, because I thought, sure, that makes sense. But okay, that's a lot of work to cheat, but okay. So this is what we need to do, is we really need to change the way we teach. So here are some things to be thinking about. Snapchat has GPT in it. Bing Chat, Google search includes generative AI. It pops up. LinkedIn users can now be bothered. Maybe that's just me, but I hate the AI powered takeaways that are in LinkedIn. They just annoy me. No, I don't want them. Carry on. So none of that can be blocked yet, but it may eventually. So these are some of the things that I want you to be aware of as well, because a lot of our kiddos are on Snapchat, a lot of them. And these are just some demographics. You can have all of this later, just so you know that most of us are not in Snapchat, but a lot of our students are. There's something called Snapchat's virtual friend. It's called Snap AI. So in Snapchat, they can tell that they have a paper due and what it's about, and Snap AI will write it for them. They can introduce the chatbot into a conversation, and others might not know that it's where. I think they're going to get some serious blowback on that from parents and other folks. But they can also name their AI and create an avatar for it, which is, I think, one of the biggest concerns for me for middle school kids who will not then, they'll just have trouble differentiating the technology from a human being. All right, but if you want more information about that, I'm going to give you a link to a whole bunch of resources, including some stuff from my friend Vicki Davis, and she'll explain more. So don't worry about that slide. All right, so McKinsey Global Institute is talking about the future of work. This I want you all to understand because I think it behooves, I personally think it behooves us to integrate chat as much as possible, simply because the world has changed. These are some of the jobs that people are going to be looking for in the next probably 5 to 7 years, if not less, especially this last one, ethics and governance specialists. We're seeing the decline and the rise of certain kinds of jobs. The link for the McKinsey report is also in the resources I'm going to share with you. Salesforce is promoting how to use AI. So we're going to see this everywhere, sales and marketing. So what can you do? This is the stuff you're most interested in. Portfolios can be really, really hard, but there's been a whole move in the middle school, high school area of student self-assessment and having them create a portfolio and having them do student self-assessment. That's an entirely different presentation, so I'm not going deep on that, but there are certain ways to help students create a portfolio, help them develop a rubric for assessing their work over time, because that emphasizes the fact that they are learning rather than they're just going for a grade. When they are using ChatGPT, this is my recommendation because they can draft their work in any of this. Whether they, I may have let a couple of personal biases show up here. Whether they work in Word or in Google Docs, they can share the document with you, and I think that that can make things a lot easier. They can copy and paste the document into ChatGPT and paste the rubric, and then you can get a copy of all of that as part of the stuff that they submit to you. So you can make sure they know how to use it, but they use it with some supervision. And you're going to think, I don't have that much time. It doesn't take long at all. I will say that it works better in some classrooms than others, simply because it may depend on the routers for that particular building. All right, so I'm going to show you, I wanted to show you how this will work. So here we go. Okay, so this is using ChatGPT. This is the free version because I'm too cheap to pay for it. So I typed in, as you can see, I will now I pasted a paper, and then this takes a minute because I had to go get the rubric, and I had to copy and paste the rubric, and then I had to go copy and paste the rubric. Whew, here we go. Then I pasted the rubric. And there it goes. That's how long it took. So based on the rubric, this is its assessment. Is it great? It's a starting place for me to understand how to use it. And I may have to fine tune my rubric. Then I say, give me a bulleted list of how the paper can be improved. And so it does. So polite, certainly. Here's how you can do that. So I could give this to my students as well, or my students can put their papers in, put the rubric in, create their own dang bulleted list, and it will show up as a chat when everything is done, and they can print that out, dump it into another document, and submit all of that or give all of that to me. Which, by the way, I am going to do for some of my English 101 and 102 papers, simply because I want to make sure they're using the tool well. But that's an example of how you can use ChatGPT and how your students can use it. Okay, no, we already saw that. Dr. Morton asked about citation. You can actually go to APA style, and they will show you how to cite ChatGPT style.mla.org. I did not check to see if it is in the Purdue OWL yet, but it may very well be. But certainly at the APA and the MLA websites, you can see how to cite it. Okay. In Copilot, I have to be logged in to Microsoft to be able to use it. One of the things that I like about Copilot is that it will give me different kinds of options in terms of the way the text is presented to me. It is, however, limited to 2,000 characters, which is good and bad for students in that they can't get a 5-page paper, 10-page paper. They can get a really rough draft of something. And we're going to experiment with Copilot as well as Chat GPT. So what other things can you do? I mean, this is a given. Provide them with guidelines for using it. And I think especially making sure that there's a link in the final work. I am going to have them, so I'm going to back up. So let me back up a little bit. So when they finish this conversation, they'll be over here. I'll be able to get a link to the conversation. I'm not in real time, so I can't go grab it right now. But in ChatGPT, the students will be able to grab a link of the chat, and they can put that in their references page or at the end of the document or wherever it is that you want them to put it. So then you can go in and see that particular chat if you want, so you can do that comparative analysis. It just holds them accountable in a different way. Be clear about the penalties. I'm telling them they have to have permission to use it. Don't trust the detectors, but I would also say use AI yourself, and show them that you're using it and how you're using it. This was a suggestion that I saw from a colleague of mine who's been using ChatGPT for a number of months now, and he said whenever he gets papers and he thinks that it's ChatGPT, I love this solution, by the way. You just open up ChatGPT, copy the document, dump it into ChatGPT, and ask it to create a quiz. And then print out the quiz and have the student complete the quiz in the class. Just to say, did you really understand what you may or may not have written? How you actually have them complete the quiz, but I'd want to watch them complete the quiz just so they didn't use ChatGPT or Google to try to get the answers. So let's see how that would work. So there it is. And see up here, it's the media bias quiz answers. And then I ask them to do that. So now I can grab this. Again, I'm not in real time, so I can't grab the link, but I could print this out for them where I dump it into a document, clean it up a little bit, and then give it to them and ask them to respond. Asynchronous online course. So that's a great question, Jennifer. I want to come back to this on top of something that Dawn was going to talk about as well. So I'll come back to you, Dawn, on this in a second. I'm doing the same thing with my English 101 class because my section is asynchronous. Students will sign the agreement. They will have to include a link in their paper if they have used ChatGPT, so I know that they have used it. And I will just make it very clear to them, if I suspect that you have used ChatGPT, we'll have a conversation because we can, or I will create a quiz on their paper and have them take it, because I can dump that into Microsoft Form. And in Microsoft Forms, if I use that for their quiz, I can also set a timer on it So they will probably not have time to look anything up. They will have to answer from their knowledge of the paper that they may or may not have written. Don, did you want to add anything about AI detectors and process of writing and that kind of thing?
No, just the only thing I said is that I've had several students as soon as when we got the Turnitin AI detector that were coming up, 100%, 95%, stuff like that. And when I did go and question them about it, their process, how they write. I mean, some of them I totally forgot. It's like, you wrote it last week. How'd you totally forget how you wrote it or what you know what I mean? So it comes like very obvious right away when I start inquiring, and whether some admitted it, some did not. But to me, it becomes kind of obvious when you just have a simple conversation with students if it was or not. And
Yeah.
the only other thing that was asked if what kind of applications can be used to use it in not a negative way, but I've used it before when groups are having stuck on a concept or an idea, have them use it to kind of brainstorm ideas as a group.
Yep.
I've had when students are stuck on topic ideas, they don't know what to write about. I've had them use it for that. And then also I've had them use it for like a proving AI wrong type of thing where they have a topic, they have AI generated a paper on it, but then I have them go through it and what was wrong about what AI came up with on that topic. So then they do have to do some research and figure out, some things that might be wrong on what they wrote it about. And it's also useful for those with disabilities. So that's all. I'm not going to say too much more about that, but I just wanted to bring those items up.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. That last point, Don, about with students who have disabilities or students who, to your point as well, who have just trouble coming up with a topic or a way to approach the topic.
Yeah,
Renee, you had a question. Go ahead.
Just starting, like you could have AI generate like the first paragraph for them to help them start the writing process on a topic.
Or a rough outline. And I need to be sure that I talk about this, this, and this. Keeping in mind that ChatGPT it's conversational. So, you type in a prompt to it and it gives you a response and maybe it's not enough. And like, could you please clarify or please, excuse me, I don't know why I'm always polite to ChatGPT, but I am. Please include any information about, whatever it is. And it'll continue to modify its responses. This is what I tell my students is you have to be aware of prompt engineering is a real thing. And you have to be clear what you are asking the tool to do because it's only as capable as the information you provide for it. If it can't read your mind. So you have to be very specific. So Renee, you had a question about language assist software that shows up as AI in Turnitin. I can't help you with that. I don't, that's a really, and I bet that is also true for any of the AI detectors is language
Yeah.
assist software. You mean like Grammarly or something else?
Yeah. And I think Wordly, I can't remember exactly the name of it, but what's happened is instead of using Journal or Forum anymore on eLearn, I started having my students do any kind of responses and to turn it in. And then I use any AI detection as a chance to start the conversation with the student just one-on-one, personally. And so what I found is with some of the highest performing, academically highest performing students, what I've found is they've told me that rather than starting with asking ChatGPT to give them a draft and then they work on it, the way that they've been using like these language assist programs is that they will write their response and then they'll send their response into this program or this assistant that will then smooth out their language. And they've shown me like, this is what I gave them, and then this is what comes out. But that ends up showing as AI. So I just wanted everyone to know that.
Yep.
And has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point because I have students who use Grammarly all the time, and Grammarly, first of all, is not always correct, and they struggle with understanding that Grammarly is not always correct. They have an editor in Microsoft Word, which is not always correct because neither of those tools can read quote unquote read student voice. So they do, to your point, Renee, simply smooth out things, but it's a very vanilla voice and style. So that's the other thing, is that they have to be careful of. But the fact is that high schools are encouraging students to use Grammarly. They don't realize that Grammarly is built on an AI platform. So that they've been using it all along, but they don't really understand the implications of that, and that it's not always correct, that they do have to clean up after it.
Okay, thanks. And then
Yeah.
the other approach that I've taken, which it sounds like it would be acceptable at Judson, is that I'll just use it as an opportunity then to assure them that the language that they are using before they smooth it out will not be a detriment to their scoring in my class, because I don't teach an English class. And then just ask them not to do that and see, and then experience that for a few weeks to see that that is not adversely affecting their grade.
I think that that's a really good point, whether it's an English class or not an English class. I think I would do that with any of the classes, is that helping them understand that it's a tool, like, you know, like the calculator was in the bad old days when students weren't allowed to use calculators. It's a tool for you to use, but ultimately, we want them to be learning from their work. So I like your idea. So here's going to be my policy. The other thing for English 101 for all the classes is that they're going to submit a revision, the first version to me. I'm going to give them feedback, which my hope is, fingers crossed, that they will actually look at the feedback. That's always a challenge. And then they have to submit a revision. I'm going to allow them to put their original paper through ChatGPT or Copilot to try to refine their paper, but they have to go back and take a look at it to make sure that it's actually saying what they want it to say. Because ChatGPT and Copilot, they don't know how Renee writes, or how Wendy writes, or how Brenda writes, or how Dawn writes. So if we all did the same thing, it would all sound exactly the same. And I don't think they understand the nuance of style and tone and voice, and how important that is for their learning experience, and for them to figure out what works best for their learning.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Elaine.
Yeah, thank you, Renee. It's a really good point. There are apps for ChatGPT and Bing, which is it's very confusing that Microsoft has so many names, but Bing is also Microsoft. So you can do talk to text in the apps, but you can also get the link from that chat. So if kids are trying to figure out ways to get around not using the link, I'm a half a step ahead of you for the moment. They can email or message the chat link to themselves, and they can include that in their works cited or references page. So there are always ways to there are ways, potentially, possibly, until they change it tomorrow or figure out a way around it, to make sure that they provide the data, the information that you need. Yeah. So until I delete a chat in ChatGPT or in Bing/Copilot, they are there, so I can keep going back to them if I want, which I think is very handy for us to know. Now, I'm sure I'm running out of time, so I'm going to do this really quickly. There are other tools
minutes.
out there. 2 minutes? Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this really fast.
Okay.
Okay. So there are tools out there that you can use, because this is being recorded. This video, I think, is a little bit long, so you can go to SlideSpeak and you can create a PowerPoint from a presentation. This is a little bit too long, so I can show you later if you want. Those of you who teach in art or in graphics and marketing, that sort of thing, you're well aware that AI is doing art. Some of the tools that are out there right now that teachers can use, one is Class Companion, another is CuriPod, another AI tool is Perplexity, perplexity.ai. It tends to be a little more than what our students would want to use, but it might be useful to you. This is Apple's Ferret, just recently released, so I haven't yet been able to experiment with it. There's also a project out there called TextFX that's for rappers, writers, and wordsmiths. I think that's very cool. This is what worries me now is the Chat GPT store. This is from FX. There's a link in the resources I'm going to give you. That this is a very cool tool I'm going to show my students. These are the chats that are available. Just to let you know, there are a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to follow the link because I'm running out of time, but I just want you to know that there's other stuff that includes things for writers. So these are custom versions of chats. So it's not just Chat GPT you might have to worry about it. Some of these other tools, yeah. Are they any good? I think they're going to be more like teachers pay teachers of AI, which means it's going to be a crapshoot. So this is a link to the resources. Brenda, I'm going to send you the link separately so you can email it out to everybody. It is a view-only document because I keep adding to it, but there are AI resources, there are pedagogy and practices resources. And there's some that are highlighted with little thumbs up emojis that are probably, I think, are the better of the pedagogy resources. And that is my story.
Wow. Thank you so much. Okay, there you go. All right. At this point, we're closing in on the 2-hour mark. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I feel like don't want to call them regular faculty. That kind of sounds like they've been taking Metamucil, but our faculty, the traditional program, they could have gained a lot from this. And I just saw Jeff Carl in the chat saying this would be a good workshop, either for spring or fall or any other time of the year. We will be sending out to you an email shortly. Right now, Wendy Martin, I saw your picture, Wendy, sorry. Gillian Stewart Wells is at a funeral for somebody at her church. Otherwise, she would have been here as we gather data for the article we hope to write from this. And so she will be sending out to you shortly after 12 noon a survey. And what was good for you? What did you not gain from? What do you want to hear more about? I would like to know, how often do you want to meet? Is once a semester good? 4 times a year, 2 times a year? I would meet in person. Obviously, we couldn't do that this time. We were just up and running, but that could be something for the future. Or does Zoom work just as well so you can sit there in your jammy pants and just enjoy what we're covering? We appreciate so much you coming to this first inaugural session. I wish I could give you all some prize, but hopefully the prize is you're walking into the semester a little better informed than you might have been otherwise. Thank you so much. Stay safe out there, please. I'm in Tennessee flying in. It's supposed to be rainy here. They're going to get snow on Monday, so they'll probably curse my name that I left snow behind for them. But I'll be joining you shortly in the subarctic air. Have a wonderful afternoon. Please stay warm, and thank you for coming. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.